Dolores lost her parents at a very young age. They died in a car accident when she was only 2 years old. She was adopted by her maternal aunt Jimena, her mother's older sister. Truth be told, Jimena didn't hold much affection for Elena, Dolores' mother. The younger sister was beautiful and refined, always attracting many admirers. One day, at a cafe, she met a tall and handsome man named Victor. He was a traveler. Victor invited her to see a new movie about a round-the-world journey in a hot air balloon. The young couple had a great time, and the film made a big impression on them. Victor turned out to be a sweet and interesting conversationalist. He knows so much, has been to so many places. Elena would excitedly tell Jimena about her new acquaintance. "He's not right for you," practical Jimena would retort. "Just a careless idler. He'll dazzle you and then leave you." However, Elena didn't listen to her sister. She continued seeing Victor. The young couple fell in love and got married just 3 months later. Jimena considered this move more than frivolous and didn't approve of her sister's marriage. Victor couldn't stay still and took his wife everywhere with him. They traveled all over the country and occasionally abroad. Jimena found this lifestyle strange. She was accustomed to staying in one place, taking care of the home and garden, and raising children. When Dolores was born, Jimena thought everything would change, but the girl's parents continued to travel, leaving her with a nanny. When the car accident happened, Jimena had no choice but to take the girl in. She already had 4 sons of her own. Dolores became the 5th child in the family. Of course, Jimena, who had the weight of the whole household on her shoulders, couldn't spare much time for the girl. And she didn't really want to. "We have enough other problems," Jimena would grumble. "She should be grateful we took her in and didn't send her to an orphanage." Jimena's sons didn't take kindly to Dolores' arrival. They didn't want to share their toys or let her join their games. The older cousins teased her, calling her a poor orphan. The girl cried constantly. She missed her parents terribly. Every morning, Dolores would climb onto the windowsill in the living room, clutching the soft teddy bear her deceased parents had given her, and hide behind the thick curtains, staring out the window in complete loneliness. Fortunately, soon another significant event occurred in the family of Xavier, which changed little Dolores' life for the better. The elderly father moved in with his daughter. Until then, Grandpa Aurelio had lived in the village, but he found it increasingly difficult to manage on his own. So Jimena decided to bring him to live with them. Grandpa Aurelio was housed in a separate wing of the house, accessible through the garden. Jimena made sure that her father had access to the kitchen and 2 rooms, one for sleeping and one for his workshop. Grandpa Aurelio had been a farmer all his life, but in his spare time, he enjoyed creating elegant wooden and plaster figurines. He still pursued his favorite pastime, which he poured his soul into. After the deaths of Jimena's and Elena's mother, creativity became the old man's only solace. With the arrival of Grandpa Aurelio in Dolores' life, a bright ray of light shone. From their very first meeting, the girl felt a deep trust towards the old man. All the children loved him for his kindness and cheerful disposition. Upon seeing Dolores for the first time, Grandpa Aurelio beckoned her over and asked her to extend her hand. The girl obeyed and was delighted to find a small plaster kitten in her hand. "How adorable," she exclaimed, quickly hiding the gift in her pocket, fearing that her cousins would take it away. Grandpa Aurelio frowned, noticing the girl's fear. He understood that the older children were mistreating her. "This girl needs love and care," he decided to himself. Grandpa Aurelio allowed Dolores to come to his workshop anytime she wanted. "I'll always be glad to see you," the old man said with a kind smile. And Dolores began to visit her grandfather every day. Grandpa Aurelio read her books, took her for walks in the park, and allowed her to help him with his figurines. The girl learned to work with plaster, and the time spent in Grandpa Aurelio's workshop became one of the happiest memories of her childhood. As Dolores grew older, her relationship with the Xavier family worsened. Her cousins continued to be rude to her, disregarding her entirely. Jimena nitpicked at Dolores over every little thing, even her choice of clothes. Once, when Dolores was 14, she wanted to rearrange her room, but Jimena wouldn't allow it. "As long as you live under this roof, I decide how the furniture is arranged," she said. Dolores was on the verge of tears from the insult. "But Aunt, it's my room, and I'm the only one living in it." Jimena pursed her lips. "There's nothing here that belongs to you, remember that," she coldly replied. The cousins, sitting at the kitchen table drinking cocoa, giggled. "Because you're a poor orphan," one of them said. "Don't forget that," added another. Instead of scolding the children, Jimena remained silent. Dolores rushed out of the kitchen, barely holding back her tears. She knew the only place where she would be understood was her grandfather Aurelio's workshop. Dolores rushed into the spacious room, illuminated by bright sunlight, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What happened, dear?" Grandpa Aurelio asked, alarmed. Dolores sat on the edge of a chair, buried her face in her hands, and sobbed aloud. "They hate me, Grandpa. Maybe I'd be better off living in an orphanage than enduring this. I can't take it anymore." Grandpa Aurelio pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "If you were in an orphanage right now, who would help me make sculptures?" he asked tenderly. Dolores wiped her tears. "You're right, Grandpa," she smiled. They got to work. When Dolores started helping the old man, his sculptures became even more graceful and unusual. She put her heart, soul, and imagination into her work. Grandpa Aurelio often said that the girl had a natural talent for noticing and creating beauty. "You have an innate gift for noticing and creating beauty," the old man often said. "When you grow up, you could become a famous artist." But Dolores just laughed shyly in response. "Oh no, Grandpa. It's all your magical hands. They create all the beauty. I'm just your helper." However, deep down, Dolores was terribly proud that Grandpa Aurelio praised her. One day, the girl suggested to the old man that they paint some of the sculptures with colors. Grandpa Aurelio thought it was a great idea. Together they went to the city and bought everything they needed for their creativity: acrylic paints, brushes, a palette. As soon as they returned, the girl got to work. The old man and Dolores worked in the workshop until late in the evening, and both were pleased with the work they had done. The plaster figurines, made by Grandpa and painted by his granddaughter, took on a whole new life. "Grandpa, what if we sell them at the school fair?" Grandpa Aurelio looked thoughtfully at Dolores. "I've never sold my work before." "But why not?" he finally smiled. Dolores clapped her hands and hugged her grandfather. Their figurines sold like hotcakes and became a real hit. Dolores was happy, and Grandpa Aurelio rejoiced as he looked at her. Years passed, and it was time for Dolores to choose what to do after school. "I really want to continue studying," Dolores confessed. "You should study to become an artist," her grandfather said. Dolores looked at him with doubt. "Are you sure? If Aunt and cousins find out, they will laugh at my intention immediately. Poor orphan wants to become an artist." "What a joke," the girl said bitterly. But Grandpa Aurelio shook his head. "You need to learn to feel your worth regardless of the opinions and actions of others," he wisely said. "Do what your heart whispers. It never deceives." Dolores nodded. "Okay, Grandpa, I'll try," she promised. And Dolores began to spend all her time studying. Finally, the time came to take exams. Dolores was very nervous, but Grandpa Aurelio supported her in everything. He suggested taking pictures of their joint works and showing them to the teachers. "I'm sure it will be a big plus for your exam results," the old man said decisively. Dolores nodded in agreement. A month later, Dolores received a letter from the university. It said that she was accepted to the first year of the art faculty, and it was also noted that all the members of the commission really liked her works. "Grandpa, I got in," exclaimed Dolores, running into the workshop. Grandpa Aurelio was very pleased. "We must celebrate this," he said. "Get ready, we're going to a restaurant." Dolores couldn't believe her ears. "But it's very expensive." Grandpa smiled. but the occasion is worth it. Besides, I've been wanting to see you in a beautiful dress for a long time." Dolores thought for a moment. "But, Grandpa, I don't have any beautiful dresses," she admitted honestly. "Is Jimena so stingy that she didn't buy you a single outfit for special occasions?" The old man frowned. "All the money goes to the boys," Dolores shrugged. Grandpa Aurelio paused for a moment, then his wrinkled face lit up. "Then, we'll stop by some fashionable store before the restaurant," he announced. No objections accepted. Dolores had to agree, and she didn't regret it. For the first time, she was allowed to choose a dress for herself. Dolores immediately saw it, pale pink, with lantern sleeves and a fluffy flowing skirt. Grandpa Aurelio was delighted when he saw his granddaughter in her new outfit. "You look magnificent," he sincerely said. "You are such a beauty. All the university boys will be chasing after you, but don't let them get too close. You need to study, and you can get married later." Dolores nodded with a laugh. "Okay, Grandpa." They spent a wonderful evening together. Everything seemed magical to Dolores. She knew that this restaurant, her dress, and Grandpa Aurelio's slightly blushing kind face would remain in her memory forever. When the Xavier family learned that Dolores had been accepted to the university, they couldn't believe what they heard. "How dare you hide everything from me?" Jimena was angry. "Ungrateful girl." Dolores blushed. "Aunt, I didn't mean to hide anything from you. I just didn't know if it would work out or not, and I didn't want to say anything prematurely." But Jimena was relentless. "Since you've been accepted to university, you're considered an adult and an independent person. You have nothing more to do in our house." Dolores couldn't believe her ears. "You're kicking me out?" Jimena crossed her arms over her chest and gave the girl a hostile look. "The university should provide dormitory housing. You can move there. It's time for you to take care of yourself. And don't you dare complain to Grandpa Aurelio. Tell him you decided to move out yourself. He's too old to worry about you." With these words, Jimena left the room with a stony face. Dolores thought that her aunt was right. There was no need to involve Grandpa. Maybe her move would be the best solution for everyone. After all, she could always come to visit her beloved grandfather and continue their joint work. Surely, no one would dare to forbid her that. The next day, Dolores went to the university and learned about the dormitory. She was told that they could provide her with a place in one of the girls' rooms. Dolores went home and, wasting no time, began to pack her things. It turned out she had very few of them. She carefully packed the pink dress that Grandpa Aurelio had given her, folded jeans, t-shirts, and hoodies, a few books, and a soft plush teddy bear that her parents had bought her a long time ago. Then, together with her bag, Dolores went to her Grandpa Aurelio's workshop. Seeing her with her belongings, he was very surprised. Dolores explained that she had been given a place in the student dormitory, and she decided that living there would be more convenient for her. The dormitory is only a 5-minute walk from the main campus. I'll be very comfortable there. Besides, I'll make friends with other girls, and I'll finally have friends," Dolores said. Grandpa Aurelio smiled. "Then, of course, it's the best decision. But I will miss you terribly, my dear granddaughter." Dolores noticed tears in the old man's eyes and hugged him tightly. "I'll visit you often. And we'll continue working on new sculptures and figurines," she reassured him. "Absolutely." Grandpa Aurelio nodded happily. That night, Dolores slept on the couch in her grandpa's workshop. It was her last night in the Xavier family's house. The next morning, she moved into the dormitory and met her roommates. They all turned out to be first-year students, just like her. Dolores found the girls to be sweet, friendly, and very talkative. "It seems I already like my new student life," she thought. One of the girls was new to the city and wanted to explore. Dolores volunteered to accompany her. They wandered around the city center, ate ice cream, enjoyed each other's company, and the fresh air. Dolores's new friend was named Elena, like her mom, and she considered it a good sign. Perhaps my mom is sending her regards from heaven, she thought. The idea brought a tear to her eye. The next day, she went to see Grandpa Aurelio and told him about her new friends. He was delighted that his granddaughter had befriended her roommates. "I hope your friendship will be strong and warm," Grandpa said, and after a moment of silence, added, "Cherish kindred spirits, they are not so common in life." Dolores nodded gratefully. They worked until late in the evening, and then she left for the dormitory by taxi. A week later, classes began, and Dolores had almost no time to visit Grandpa Aurelio's workshop. She diligently attended classes, spent long hours in the library, and sometimes didn't return to her room until close to midnight. Her favorite teacher was Senior Mateo Amato. He had recently graduated from university and was very talented and young. His pleasant voice, kind brown eyes, and shoulder-length curly black hair captivated all the girls. Mateo wore light shirts to class, with sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and simple but stylish jeans. Dolores immediately noticed that many girls looked at him with admiration, and she caught herself liking him too. However, she quickly pushed that thought away. Mateo was a teacher, and she was his student. She shouldn't think of him any differently. Senior Amato taught sculpture, and one day after class, he unexpectedly asked Dolores to stay a little longer. "I would like to ask you something, Señorita," he said in his charming voice. Surprised, Dolores nodded and sat back at her desk. "The teachers who were on the admissions committee told me that you showed them photos of your work. They were impressed by their delicacy and grace. I would like to see something from your creations with my own eyes." Dolores was pleased that their works with her grandfather had caused such a resonance. "We created these sculptures and figurines together with my grandpa. I'll go to him today and ask for permission," she said. Mateo nodded and smiled at her with such a charming smile that Dolores's heart skipped a beat. She smiled back and hurried out of the classroom. "The only thing I needed was to fall in love with him," Dolores thought to herself. After having lunch at a cafe, she didn't go home but went straight to Grandpa Aurelio's workshop to visit him, help him, and tell him about Senior Amato's request. Grandpa Aurelio greeted her with a joyful smile. It was clear he missed his granddaughter very much. Dolores sadly noted that during the time they hadn't seen each other, Grandpa Aurelio had aged a lot. She tried to push away sad thoughts and began telling the old man about her studies, how much she liked the lessons, how big the university library was, and how great it was to walk in the park during breaks between classes. Then she told him about Senior Mateo Amato and his request. Grandpa Aurelio was pleasantly surprised. "If your teacher wants to see our works, I invite him here. Come together," he said. Dolores nodded and said she would pass the sculptor's invitation to the old man. Then they got to work, and Dolores left late at night. She really didn't want to part with Grandpa Aurelio, and she promised to call him tomorrow. The next day, Dolores arranged with Senor Amato that they would go to Grandfather Aurelio's on Friday after classes. Then she called the old man to warn him. He was delighted with the news and said he would prepare a treat. Dolores got worried because Grandfather Aurelio was coughing heavily on the phone. "Are you catching a cold?" she asked. "A little," croaked the old man. "Let's bring drinks and something tasty with us." "You shouldn't strain yourself, Grandpa." Only one day remained until Friday, and Dolores eagerly awaited the meeting with Grandfather Aurelio. She was very concerned about his health. Finally, classes ended, and Senor Amato met the girl in the hall. "My car is in the parking lot. Can we stop by the supermarket on the way? I would like to buy groceries for Grandfather Aurelio, as well as drinks and pastries, so we can all spend some time together." Mateo smiled and nodded. "Of course, no problem," he replied, taking the girl by the arm. And they walked towards the exit, accompanied by the surprised, curious, and envious looks of other students. "What does he see in her?" Dolores heard the voice of a tall blonde girl who was in her second year. It seemed that Mateo heard it too. "Pay no attention to what others say," he whispered, feeling that Dolores was very tense. No one should have a say in your life. The girl nodded. They went out, and Amato brought Dolores to the parking lot. He stopped in front of a large silver Jeep. Many people ask, how come an ordinary university teacher has such an expensive car? Mateo smiled. Dolores modestly remained silent, but this question really interested her. It's a gift from sponsors, continued the sculptor, opening the door for the girl. They really like my work. Last year, I participated in an international exhibition in Italy. This time, Dolores couldn't help but let out an admiring exclamation. Oh, that's a significant achievement, exclaimed the girl, sitting in the passenger seat. It sure is, Mateo smiled, getting behind the wheel. Italy is rightfully considered the capital of the arts. Dolores sighed. I wish I could participate in an exhibition someday, she said dreamily. I'm sure you have it all ahead of you, Senor Amato replied seriously. They drove through the city streets, and Dolores liked how smoothly the car moved. Finally, Mateo stopped at a huge supermarket and parked the Jeep. He swiftly got out of the car and managed to open the door for Dolores before she could unbuckle her seatbelt. Thank you, she said with a shy smile. They took a trolley and filled it with various groceries, drinks, and sweets. To Dolores' surprise, Mateo didn't let her pay for the purchases. He packed everything into bags and carried them to the parking lot. Dolores followed him empty-handed. She appreciated the gesture from her teacher, but at the same time, she felt awkward. Finally, they arrived at the Xavier family's house and parked nearby. Mateo took the bags with groceries, while Dolores showed the way. Grandfather Aurelio took a long time to open the door. Did he forget about the meeting and go somewhere? Dolores worried. But then the door opened, and the pale grandfather appeared on the threshold. Dolores, my dear. I'm sorry for not opening the door earlier. I haven't been feeling well since the morning, took a short nap, and apparently fell asleep deeply. Grandfather indeed looked unwell. Dolores was very scared for him but tried to keep herself together. Grandfather Aurelio stepped aside to let the guests in. Dolores led Mateo to the workshop and showed him the table where they could put the bags. Grandfather went to the bathroom to freshen up a bit, and when he returned, Dolores excitedly introduced him and Senor Amato to each other. Pleased to meet you, young man, the old man said warmly. Likewise, colleague, Mateo responded. They shook hands, and Grandfather Aurelio began to show Mateo his works and tell the story of their creation, while Dolores busied herself with refreshments. When the old man had shown everything in the workshop, the new friend sat down on the couch. Dolores placed drinks on the table, arranged pastries, cheese, and tartlets with various fillings on plates. Mateo spoke highly of the works he had seen in the workshop. Your sculptures and figurines are simply magical. The whole world must see them. Grandfather Aurelio smiled, his eyes gleaming with the joy every creator feels when praised for their work. The whole world. That's quite a leap, young man. All boundaries exist in our minds, Mateo wisely replied, sampling a chocolate pastry. Delicious. Senorita Dolores made an excellent choice. My granddaughter is very talented, confirmed Grandfather Aurelio. She breathed new life into my work. Dolores smiled shyly. I just love working with paints, she simply said. And apparently, paints love working with you, joked Mateo. Everyone laughed. You have a great future ahead, added Senor Amato. Grandfather Aurelio took a sip of juice and nodded contentedly. I've been telling her that since she was a child. As he said these words, Grandfather Aurelio started coughing heavily. Mateo glanced at Dolores. I think it's time for us to. You need to rest, he tactfully suggested. Yes, Grandfather, you should lie down, Dolores got up. I'll tidy up here. Grandfather Aurelio nodded gratefully. He indeed felt weak. He got up and was about to shake Mateo's hand when Mateo suddenly jumped to his feet, as if a thought had just struck him. Before you go, I'd like to offer you something. In 2 weeks, there will be a major city art exhibition at our university's cultural center. Would you like to participate? Grandfather Aurelio and Dolores exchanged excited glances. Why not? It's a wonderful opportunity, emotionally responded Grandfather Aurelio. I've never been offered such a thing before. That's fantastic. Dolores couldn't contain her excitement. Senor Amato, thank you so much for this chance. She hugged Grandfather Aurelio and escorted him to his room. Grandfather, I'll come again tomorrow and stay for the weekend. The old man just nodded. He had no strength left after all the pleasant excitement of the evening. Dolores let him rest and returned to the workshop, where she found Mateo already starting to clear the table. No, let me do it myself, protested the girl. It's no trouble at all, replied Mateo. They quickly cleaned up and left the house. I hope Grandfather Aurelio gets better soon, Dolores said hopefully as she got into Mateo's car. Is he very dear to you? Senor Amato asked understandingly. My grandfather is the only close person I have in the whole world. He has given me as much love as he could. The girl fell silent for a long time. Mateo understood that she didn't want to talk right now and turned on some quiet, pleasant music. They listened to beautiful songs for the rest of the way. Mateo dropped Dolores off at the dormitory and thanked her for the wonderful evening. I felt very cozy and warm in your grandfather's workshop. I'm sure your joint works will be highly appreciated at the exhibition. They are worth much more than you think. Dolores raised her eyebrows in astonishment, but she couldn't doubt the truth of the young sculptor's words. From that evening on, she began to eagerly anticipate the exhibition. During the next visit, Grandfather Aurelio did not get any better. He lay all day and was unable to start working. Every weekend, Dolores painted finished figurines and took care of her grandfather Aurelio. It was hard for her to part with him, but the next day she had to attend lectures. Go, dear, said Grandfather Aurelio. Don't skip classes. I'll be fine. If I need help, I'll call Jimena. After all, she's still my daughter. Dolores nodded. Grandfather Aurelio brought a large bag from which he moved from the village. Embroidered on it was a large golden oak tree. Put all the works here that will participate in the exhibition and take them with you. Dolores was surprised. But the exhibition is still 2 weeks away. I can take them later. But Grandfather Aurelio insisted. It's better not to postpone until tomorrow what can be done today, he remarked. Dolores obeyed and selected their best joint works for the exhibition. Take care of yourself, Grandpa, she said as a parting word. Grandfather Aurelio escorted her to the door, hugged her tightly, and kissed her on the forehead. And you, dear. Remember, I love you very much. For some reason, Dolores's heart tightened at these words. She waved to Grandfather Aurelio, took the bag, and left. The old man waved to his granddaughter for a long time, standing on the doorstep of the house. The next day, Dolores took the bag with her grandfather's figurines to her lectures. During the break, she went to the department where Mateo worked and handed him the bag. Here are Grandpa's best works. We decided that they would participate in the exhibition. Great. I'll take them to the cultural center, where preparations are already in full swing. I assure you, all the figurines will be safe and sound. I'll personally take care of it. Dolores thanked Mateo and went to the next class. It was an ordinary day of study, and Dolores didn't even suspect that it would become the saddest day of her life. When she got home, her mobile phone rang. Her aunt's name appeared on the display. Dolores's heart pounded hard. Jimena never called her, and why would she? There could only be one reason. Something had happened to Grandfather Aurelio. Dolores hastily picked up the receiver, hearing sobs on the other end. Aunt, what happened? Is Grandfather Aurelio worse? Jimena didn't answer right away. She couldn't calm down. Grandfather Aurelio is no longer with us, she finally uttered. Dolores dropped the phone to the floor. She couldn't believe what she had heard. The closest person in her life was gone. Dolores staggered. Her friend Elena entered the room. "What's wrong, honey? You look so pale," she worried. At that moment, Dolores felt dizzy, her eyes darkening from the unbearable suffering she was experiencing. Elena helped her to the bed and brought water. "Grandpa passed away," Dolores whispered, taking a sip. It seemed to her that her voice belonged to someone else. Elena let out a sympathetic cry and hugged her friend tightly. "My poor girl," she whispered, knowing how much Dolores loved her grandfather. They sat embracing for a long time, then Elena suggested that Dolores lie down. The girl didn't think she could fall asleep, but sleep almost instantly enveloped her with its weightless web, and she sank into it like into soft fluff. Dolores dreamed that she was little again and helping Grandfather Aurelio in his workshop. "Grandpa, you'll never leave me, right?" Dolores asked. "No, I promise," the old man replied seriously. "I'll always be by your side, even when I'm gone." Late at night, Dolores woke up in tears. She already missed her grandfather terribly. Getting up, she drank some water and fell asleep again. This time she dreamed that she and Grandfather Aurelio were walking in the park and feeding the fish in the pond. In the morning, Dolores felt shattered. She didn't go to university and slept all day. In the afternoon, Aunt Jimena sent a message with the date of the funeral and the address where it would take place, and in the evening, someone called her from an unknown number. Dolores reluctantly picked up the phone. She didn't want to talk to anyone. "Señorita Dolores," she heard a familiar voice. "Yes, it's me," the girl replied. "You missed my lecture." Only now did Dolores realize it was Mateo Amato. "I decided to find out what happened," the young man continued. "You used to attend all the classes. Are you sick?" If only, Dolores thought bitterly. She gathered all her strength, but even then her voice sounded very weak. "My grandfather passed away." There was a pause. Mateo didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry for your loss." He finally whispered and added, "If you need my help, don't hesitate to ask." "Thank you, Señor Amato," Dolores replied quietly. "I won't come to the lecture tomorrow either. I need to go to the funeral." "I can take you there if you don't mind," Mateo said. Dolores bit her lip. She really needed someone's support, but how could she accept it from a teacher? "What about your lecture?" Dolores asked. "I'll reschedule it," Amato said decisively. Dolores had no more strength to resist. "Okay. We need to leave at 8. "I'll be at the dormitory at 5 to 8, Mateo replied. With that, they said goodbye. The funeral was very modest. Besides Xavier and Dolores' family, there was another old friend of their grandfather's who specially came from the village to bid farewell to Aurelio. Dolores couldn't hold back her tears. Mateo gently embraced her shoulders, trying to support her in some way. Aunt Jimena and cousins looked at the young couple with surprise, but fortunately, no one said anything. Dolores couldn't bear to hear cutting remarks from the family she had to grow up in. However, as Dolores was getting into the car with Mateo, Aunt Jimena approached them. "Dolores, I want to ask you something," she said arrogantly. "Yes, Aunt," Dolores replied. "Yesterday, I was cleaning Father's workshop and noticed that his favorite pieces were missing. Do you happen to know where they could have gone? I've checked all the cabinets, they're nowhere to be found." There was clear irritation in Aunt Jimena's voice. "Why do you need them?" asked the surprised Dolores. "I thought they could be sold at the market," Jimena replied directly. "You understand, there were a lot of expenses for the funeral and all." Dolores was about to respond when Mateo intervened in the conversation. "Listen, that's not acceptable. These pieces have high artistic value, and you just want to take them to the market," he protested. Aunt Jimena shot him a furious glance. "And who are you to decide what I should do?" "I'm a university professor," Señor Amato replied with dignity. "And I know a thing or two about such matters." "So you contacted a professor, Dolores?" Jimena turned to the girl. I never thought you were capable of such a thing. I always raised you to be modest and decent. Dolores blushed and felt like disappearing. She was already feeling very bad, and now this unpleasant conversation. She was afraid that after Aunt Jimena's words, Mateo would stop talking to her. She was about to start justifying herself, but Senor Amato didn't allow her to do so. It's none of your concern, he cut in. If you've said everything you wanted, then please excuse us to the car. Aunt Jimena hesitated for a moment, but that moment was enough for Mateo to lead the bewildered Dolores away, open the door for her, and seat her inside. As he walked around the car, he noticed Aunt Jimena giving him a furious look. She's a thief, she suddenly exclaimed. I'll sue her for stealing Father's statues. Mateo stopped. This is the joint work of grandfather and granddaughter. All their creations now belong to Dolores, and you'll have to accept that. With these words, he got into the car and drove off, leaving Aunt Jimena standing by the roadside with her mouth open in outrage. Mateo and Dolores remained silent for a long time. This time, Mateo didn't turn on the music. Apparently, he wanted to talk about what had happened. Did this woman raise you instead of your mother? He cautiously asked at last. Dolores bit her lip and nodded silently. Now I understand why you considered your grandfather the only close person. This woman. Mateo didn't continue, just wrinkled his nose in disgust. I feel so embarrassed for my aunt, Dolores whispered. For what she said about us. Mateo briefly took his eyes off the road and looked at Dolores. Perhaps it looked like that from the outside. But my intentions are pure. I never thought of anything like that. Though, undoubtedly, I find you attractive. Dolores flared up. Oh no, don't think I often court my students. Actually, this is the first time for me. I liked you from the first sight. Your fragility and graceful features. When I first saw you, I wanted to take care of you, protect you from the whole world. Dolores couldn't believe what she was hearing. Did she evoke such feelings in Senor Amato? But if it's uncomfortable for you to hear all this, I won't say it. I'll never cross the line and put you in an awkward position. After all, I'm a teacher and you're my student. But won't it always be like this? Dolores, what do you think? Do I have a chance? Dolores was so astonished she didn't know what to say. You also appeal to me, Senor Amato, but my grandfather said I should focus on studying first. Mateo glanced at Dolores again. Yes, I understand, and I won't insist. We can be friends. Dolores nodded. It would be better for everyone. Their relationship would be too compromising. I'm so sorry my grandfather didn't live to see the exhibition, Dolores sighed, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Me too, echoed Mateo. He was a wonderful man with golden hands. What a pity I didn't get to know him earlier. Dolores sobbed. They didn't utter another word. 2 weeks later, an exhibition took place. The works of Grandfather Aurelio and Dolores greatly impressed the visitors and cultural figures, earning them an honorary certificate. Additionally, a gray-haired man approached Dolores and inquired about her inspiration for creativity. She marveled at his foreign accent and replied that the muse comes to her as soon as she picks up a brush and paint. Oh, that's wonderful, the man chuckled. Then he slightly bowed and handed her a business card. Alessandro Ricci proclaimed the beautiful golden letters. Sculptor. Do you also work in sculpture? The girl asked. Alessandro nodded. Yes, and I've been quite successful at it. I have my own school in Italy. Every year we hold our own exhibition, attended by professionals from all over the world. Perhaps you'd be interested in participating? Dolores couldn't believe her ears. She was being invited to an exhibition in Italy? When, she dared to ask. Next week already. You'll have just enough time to pack your items and gather your suitcase, the Italian said cheerfully. We'll cover your travel and accommodation expenses. Dolores had no choice but to smile in response. Of course, I agree. By the way, we've also invited a professor from your university, Senor Amato. Do you know him? Dolores nodded joyfully. So Mateo would be there too. Magical. After the conversation with Alessandro, Dolores found the young sculptor and shared the grand news with him. He was very happy for her. I never doubted your talent, he exclaimed, barely restraining himself from hugging her. Mateo and Dolores spent 3 wonderful days in Italy. It was Dolores's first ever trip, and she enjoyed everything immensely. They managed to visit an art gallery, a museum, and indulge in amazing Italian cuisine. When they returned from Italy, Dolores learned a terrible thing from the television news. The Xavier family home, where she grew up and where grandfather Aurelio's workshop was located, had burned down completely. It was the biggest fire in the city's history. The report showed Auntie Minna, who had lost everything. She never trusted banks and kept all her money at home. Moreover, the house itself was uninsured. Jimena's adult sons didn't work, accustomed to the fact that mom would always feed them, so the family was left with no means of survival. One of their friends donated their old van to them. It was parked next to the garbage bins, and the family now slept there. Compassionate neighbors shared clothes and blankets with them, brought food. The older brothers urgently started looking for work, but they weren't very lucky yet. The family was in dire straits. We rummaged through the trash bins every day in search of good things, the unfortunate Auntie Minna admitted. Disturbed by the news, Dolores immediately called and told Mateo everything. He shrugged and stated that she couldn't help in any way. But you live on a scholarship yourself, he reasoned. But I have Grandpa's statues. If I sell them and give the money to Aunt, she can buy a new house and improve the family's situation. The girl objected. Mateo looked at her with amazement. Are you willing to sacrifice the most precious thing for these people? You said yourself that they never valued you for anything. Dolores nodded but couldn't calm down. They're still my family, she said quietly. Mateo ran his hand through his hair. Of course, it's entirely up to you. And Dolores decided. She kept her grandfather's favorite work for herself, a mythical Pegasus with rainbow wings, the painting of which she was particularly proud of. She took the rest of the items to a collector recommended by Mateo, who paid a high price for her grandfather's exclusive work. Dolores placed the money in her grandfather's bag and left a note inside. Hope these funds help you. Early in the morning, Dolores arrived at the place where the Xavier family's house used to be and stood by the fence for a while. Then she noticed a van where Auntie Minna now lived. Not wanting to meet anyone from the Xavier family personally and remembering their words about digging through dumpsters, she placed the bag near the trash bin. Then she knocked loudly on the van door and quickly walked away down the street. She didn't hear the van door open, and Auntie Minna appeared at the threshold. Not seeing anyone, she was about to close the door when she noticed a bag with an embroidered golden oak tree next to the trash bin. Jimena approached and picked up the bag. This is Dad's bag, she said aloud. But how did it end up here? Jimena placed the bag on the ground, unzipped it, and gasped in amazement, covering her mouth with her hand. Where did this money come from? Echoed in her mind. She noticed the note and, after reading it, realized that Dolores had been here. Auntie Minna took the bag, went into the van, and sat on an old chair. She placed the bag at her feet and stared at the banknotes for a long time. So, Dolores sold Dad's figurines and gave the money to them. But why? Did she regret it? And this after calling her a thief? Auntie Minna shook her head in bewilderment. And how could I have acted like this? The girl has a heart of gold. She whispered quietly so as not to wake the family. Unexpectedly, tears streamed down the woman's cheeks, and her own hardened heart softened a bit. Dolores continued attending lectures, but she missed working in the workshop she had been accustomed to since childhood. So, Dolores asked Mateo for permission to come to his workshop when the senior courses were held there. He gladly granted her this permission. Dolores had the opportunity to continue her grandfather Aurelio's work. However, she was not as skilled a sculptor and soon switched to painting. Her paintings gained attention. She was invited to exhibitions. Soon, she became known throughout the city. The first academic year was swiftly coming to an end. Dolores was very busy. All her time was spent preparing for exams and tests. Finally, all that was behind her, and she was looking forward to the holidays. Her friend Elena suggested she go to the seaside where her grandmother lived, and Dolores agreed happily. A few days before her departure, Mateo called her to meet. "I have news for you," he said mysteriously. They met in the park and sat on a bench near the fountain. "So what did you want to tell me?" asked Dolores. She was wearing the same pink dress that her grandfather had given her. Mateo admired the girl. The evening was warm. The fountain murmured gently, as if whispering words of love. Stars lit up one by one in the sky. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers, mixed with Dolores's perfume. Mateo leaned towards the girl and ran his hand through her hair. "I've decided to quit the university," he said. "Next year, you'll have a new sculpture teacher." "Really?" Dolores was disappointed. She couldn't imagine her life without Mateo Amato. "Very much so," nodded the young man. "I've decided to dedicate all my time to creativity. I have the opportunity to earn quite well from it, so why not?" Dolores lowered her head. She didn't want to lose another close person, but she knew that life doesn't always go the way you want. "So, we won't see each other anymore?" she asked. "Yes, I won't be your teacher anymore," smiled Mateo, then added after a pause, "but I really want to be your boyfriend. If you don't mind." Surprised, Dolores didn't immediately realize what she heard, then she laughed joyfully. "Hope you're not quitting because of me," she clarified. Mateo grinned mischievously and leaned a bit closer. "Exactly for that reason," he confessed. Having said that, Mateo gently touched Dolores's lips, and she responded to his kiss. Somewhere, a street musician played a beautiful melody on the violin, and above the lovers' heads, the golden stars shone even brighter. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.